Hello everyone, this is post-editing Lauren. So this is another little compilation video about Shadowdark, and it documents my journey from homebrewing the map to creating the characters to the final solo game. So yeah, the first video is how I went about brainstorming the dungeon. The second is why I chose the characters I did from the Shadowdark, I suppose, starter pack from Kelsey. And the third one is putting everything into practice and is the actual solo game, which I believe is based in Tol Ruins. So yeah, I'll hand you over to past Lauren, who will take you through designing the dungeon map. Bye for now. Hello everyone, and welcome. In today's video, I'm creating a dungeon for my solo dark adventure. I was initially going to choose an adventure from one of the zines, but instead, I wanted to create one from scratch that I could have more narrative control over. To begin with, I will follow the instructions in the Shadowdark handbook, which are on page 130. When designing the dungeon, several tables are available, including the dungeon's danger level, size, and type. First, I'll briefly describe the options of these tables and then roll for everything at the end. The danger level is pretty self-explanatory and ranges from unsafe to deadly. I kind of want deadly, as I would prefer to put my characters through their paces and see how long they'd last, as they are only level 1. Or maybe I shouldn't be so cruel. I just like imminent peril and find it much more fun to play. Site size ranges from small to large, so to determine the site size, I will roll a d6 and then a d10s. Let's say I rolled a 3 on a d6. I then take 8 d10s and roll them on a sheet of paper. The number on each d10 die corresponds to a room type. If I roll any 1s or 2s on the d10s, the room type is empty. However, if I roll a 5 for example, it's a solo monster. I promise this will become more clear when I actually do the dice drop and show you how I'm going to draw it up. By this point, I'll have the basic foundations of a dungeon, but what will I fill it with? Fortunately, Kelsey has provided plenty of quick and easy tables for that too. So let's go with my 5 on a d10. That room revolves around a solo monster, but what type? How do I choose one? On page 131, there is a solo monster table, and I roll 2 d6s to give me a prompt on the monster type that I want to include. Right, so it's time to roll the dungeon size. Here we go. Ah, that's a 3, so it's a medium dungeon. This means I'm now going to roll 8 d10s to determine the room types. I'm going to roll my glass d10 last, as it's a bit on the delicate side. Also, because I don't have 8 d10s, I'm going to drop a few d100s and knock a 0 off. So, far left we have a 9. I've moved this one a bit over, as it's rolled off my sketchbook. At the bottom, there is a 90. But we're knocking a 0 off, so that die will also be a 9. According to the table, that's 2 rooms of treasure, which is good, as I was worried I'd get 0 9s and it would all be bad. We need a bit of treasure to incentivise our dungeon crawlers. We've also got a 10 and an 80, or 8. Ooh, we have a boss monster and a major hazard. 2 extremes compared with the treasure, which is cool, as we want a bit of conflict. We also have a 5 and a 4, which are a solo monster and minor hazard, respectively. I'm glad I've got a solo monster, as there's some great options in Shadowdark. Minor hazard seems cool though. I need to remind myself it's minor, as knowing me, I'll insert some sort of death trap. For the glass die, I think I rolled a 6. I did peer down off camera, but even then, I can't quite say for sure. But we'll go for it. Also, I don't think we've had a 6 yet, so it's a nice opportunity to introduce an NPC. The next unclear die on the far left, I believe is a 7. Note to self. When filming, use higher contrast dice. Okay, so there are no empty rooms here. I'm not sure how I feel about that, as I sometimes like to waste a bit of time wandering around an empty room, especially with a busy dungeon like this one. So a quick recap or summary of our room types. We have 2 treasure rooms, a boss monster, a major hazard, a solo monster, a minor hazard, an NPC, and a monster mob. Now I'm going to visit a set of tables to determine what's going on within each room. I'm going to start with room 7, which is a monster mob. So I rolled a 1 and a 2, which is stealthy minions. I'm not sure why I wrote warriors on my map, as 2 means minions in the right hand column. Room 5 has a solo monster, and I rolled a 3 and a 2. So they are a mighty brute. I'll have to look up monsters in the Shadowdark manual and see what suits a mighty brute best. I may even choose several and roll for it. I won't do that in this video though, as I want it to be a surprise. Next, I'm going to roll for both treasure rooms, so that's a 1 and a 2. The treasure is hidden in either room, and that's fine by me. Now we're rolling for the major hazard. Well, that's another low roll of 2, so there will be a long fall to watch out for. NPCs up next, and again another super low roll. They are hiding. So here this roll bounced off the dice tray and was annoyingly another 1, so I just used footage from a previous roll. The minor hazard here is a shortfall. Very good. I anticipate a few broken or twisted ankles in this dungeon. We're now up to the boss monster, and I rolled a 4. Oh, so they will be guarded by minions. Not bad. To be honest, I hoped it wasn't physically strongest, due to my characters being level 1, but I could always have adjusted that based on their level. A religious leader or supreme sorcerer could have been a great outcome though, given the narrative in my head that I've already come up with. Okay, so that's my dungeon rooms fleshed out slightly. What I need to think about now is the theme of the dungeon. I explored this in a site type table, which I've yet to roll. Depending on the role, my dungeon could be a cave, tomb, deep tunnels, or ruins. To be honest, all of these would work very well with my fledgling backstories for my characters. So I'm not too bothered about what I get for this. Finally, I got a high roll, a 6, which is ruins. This is great, as it leans into Sneech's backstory of looking for an artifact to protect his church from the blood riot. To be honest, I was secretly hoping for that one, so I'm glad that's what I got. Next, I'm going to roll for the dungeon's overall difficulty. I always like lethal quests, so I'm hoping for a high roll, but I doubt I'll get a 6 again. Ah, that's a 3, oh dear, so it's unsafe. Not even risky. Not even one bit risky, actually. Nevertheless, we work with what we have. Maybe this is the universe's way of telling me to take it easy on my characters. So what's next? Well, I want to develop a loose story, and I can do this with the rumours table on page 120. Now, I've already got an idea of my characters' backstories, but there are a few story strands I'd like to tie together. I want to have a solid narrative to draw upon, as it makes playing so much easier and enjoyable. These rumours are similar to the motivation prompts I used in a Mythic GM, but instead of word pairings, they're little story hooks. Now, I can take these rumours quite literally, or use them as a foundation to create a new narrative entirely. So let's see what we get. Well, that's a 75. Right, so let's look this up. Rumour has it the Cyclopean ruins of Yul Tool lie deep within the forest. Now that is very interesting, given my previous roles and outcomes. I'm really enjoying stitching all of these little bits of information together into one narrative. This is, I suppose, is why I enjoy TTRPGs so much. I think this is a good time to do a little recap. We have unsafe dungeon ruins with 8 rooms, each containing something that could benefit or challenge my players. One room contains a monster mob of stealthy minions, which could be a bit of a prelude to Big Boss, provided they get that far. Our solo monster is in another room, and is a mighty brute. 2 rooms contain treasure, which is hidden, but how well is it hidden? I'll roll later to determine that outcome. Another room contains a major hazard, which is a long fall. I may use a Mythic GM book to see if I can work on something for this. I don't know why, but the first image that popped into my head was an underground waterfall, so I might go with that, but who knows. And NPCs also hiding in a room. Perhaps they own the ruins for the same reason as our players. There is a minor hazard in another room, which is a shortfall. However, the most interesting room is the boss monster. Perhaps this could be the Cyclops, who is awoken by explorers trying to steal the treasure within its ruins. Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'll explain how Shadowdark works and introduce you to my characters. I'm actually quite excited to get started in the world of Shadowdark and develop my own little gaming universe. With Shadowdark and any other solo game, I'm both the GM and a player. For this reason, there has to be an additional layer of randomization. Otherwise, it'll get boring very quickly, as I just know the outcome. If you're unfamiliar with solo games, there is a distinct component called an oracle. In Shadowdark, there are 3 outcomes: yes, no, and twist. So let's just say my character has entered a clearing. It's a dark, starry night. The air is clear, crisp and cold, but a deathly silence fills this void of nothingness, until there is a loud crash of a branch falling from a tree. If I were a player, or even a GM, I'd want to know if someone, or something, fell out of the tree. This is where the oracle comes in. Actually, let's just roll and see what we get. Okay, so I rolled a 17. Someone or something did fall out of a tree. So, as a GM, I want to know if it's an inanimate object or a living creature. Now, I could ask the oracle a question again, but I want a more concrete answer. So I'm going to just roll a d6. Odd, it's an inanimate object. Even, it's a creature. I rolled 5, so odd, and it's an inanimate object. Now, while this is all going on, as a player, I'll be rolling perception checks to determine where the crash occurred and if there was any movement after it. Sorry, it's a bit of a long-winded explanation, but you get the gist. So, back to Shadowdark. Because I backed the Kickstarter, I got sent some pre-generated characters that I'm actually going to use. I want to demonstrate that you can just pick up and play Shadowdark and Shadowdark right away, which is why I'm going to use them instead of rolling up new ones. For now anyway. According to Shadowdark, an ideal group size is 2 to 4 players. I'm going to choose 3 as I fancy the challenge. All of my characters are level 1, and I've got a mix of magic users and a thief. Let's begin with my first pick, Sneech the Goblin Priest. As we can see from his character card, he's an initiate, just started on his priesthood journey. His alignment is chaotic, which I love, and he's sadly orphaned. His deity is Ramlat. Now I'm going to look up who Ramlat is. So Ramlat is the pillager, the barbaric, the horde. Many orcs worship him and live by the blood rite, a prophecy that says only the strongest will survive a coming doom. Well, that's really heavy, but also quite cool. Okay, so I can quite easily come up with his motivation and backstory, but I don't want to do that. I want to leave a bit to chance, mainly because I want to wield as little influence over this character as possible. So I will do this with the character motivation table in the Mythic GM generator. I really like this book as there is so much in it you can apply to other creative endeavours. I'm actually tempted to use it in the novel I'm writing, to help me generate ideas when I get stuck. Anyway, before I go down a tangent, let's roll. Right, I got a 92, which is stop. Now this table works on a word pairing prompt, so I'll roll again to get my second prompt. And it's 31. Ooh, that's friend. Okay, so what can we make out of stop friend? Perhaps our goblin stopped having friends because he got used to surviving on his own. Maybe after he was orphaned, he moved around so much that he lost touch with everyone he met. But he realised something was missing from his life, so he became a priest, maybe to find a deeper meaning and purpose, even though that meaning is quite dark due to him believing some sort of blood rite will occur. Perhaps this has prompted him to take an adventure and look for some ancient artefact that he believes will protect him and his church from the coming doom. My next character is Thorin Gendry, a dwarf wizard. Unlike Sneech, he is lawful, not chaotic. Thorin is starting as an apprentice, his background is a scout, and his deity is Madeira. So let's look up Madeira and see what they're all about. Madeira was the first manifestation of law. She carries every law of reality, a dictate called the Covenant, written on her skin in precise symbols. Okay, so now I'm going to roll for Thorin's motivations. This could get quite interesting, considering that he is a scout. So I wonder what they could be scouting for. Also, he's quite the opposite of Sneech, making everything more chaotic and fun. So the first roll is 91, which is start, and the second roll is 30, which is free. Okay, so how can we turn this into a meaningful prompt? Start and free. Well, Thorin is an apprentice and lawful wizard. Perhaps to progress in their training, they need a component for a spell, but it's very expensive. And because they are lawful, they won't steal it. So they want this free component to start a spell. See what I did there? Admittedly, it's not very abstract, but who cares? Also, what if our two little characters are after the same artefact, or spell component in Thorin's case, and maybe they're keeping this a secret from each other? I'm unsure if I'm overly complicating this now, so I'll park that thought and revisit it later if it ever becomes relevant. So my third and final character is Elias the Exile, an elf thief. What stands out about this character is that their backstory is banished. I do like a banished backstory, as there is so much potential. We could go down the wrongfully accused and framed route, or the I did wrong and need to make it up to everyone route. Before I let my imagination run away with me though, I'll return to their character card. Their deity is Gede. I'm just going to look them up now. So Gede is the god of feasts, mirth and the wilds. Gede is usually peaceful, but primal stores rage when her anger rises. Many elves and halflings worship her. Oh, and her alignment is also neutral. Good to know. So Thorin's title is Robber, but I'm curious and want to look up other titles to get an idea of how the thief class is broken down according to alignment. So we've already established an entry-level thief who is neutral is a robber. The chaotic equivalent is a thug, and a lawful type is a footpad. Right, so let's use the motivation table. The first roll gives me a 49, which is innocent. Now that is very intriguing. Let's see what the second roll brings. Oh, okay, we have a bit of an oxymoron situation here. Innocent and malice. What can I make out of that? Maybe they were banished, but they were innocent. There has been a bit of foreshadowing there already. Then with malice, perhaps they're seeking revenge. But against whom? And how will this character connect to the other two? Or will they just meet by happenstance? This actually could be something I work on with the Oracle in Shadowdark, or with the Mythic GM. To recap though, our three characters are Sneech the Goblin Priest, who is on a mission to retrieve an artefact for his church to protect them from the Bloodrite. Next, we have Thorin Gendry, a dwarf wizard who is after the same artifact but wants to use it as a component in a spell to progress in his studies. Finally, we have Elias the Exiled, a halfling elf thief who was unjustly banished for something they didn't do, and now they are out for revenge. Hello everyone, and welcome. So today is a big day for me running my Shadowdark one-shot. In the last few videos, you would have seen me choose my characters and loosely design a dungeon for them to explore. Now because it's Shadowdark, I want to really lean into a rules-like game that's more narrative-driven. So my characters will be in the dungeon for as long as the torches they have on are burning. One torch is 1 hour of real-time gameplay. They will be stuck if they don't get out within that time. Also, I'm not going to be using luck tokens, as I know I will forget about them as I'm playing. A luck token basically grants players the chance to re-roll if they roll badly. Also with the Oracle, I'm not paying attention to add in a however phrase when I roll an odd number. An example of this is, if a roll is high but odd, the Oracle's answer would be yes however. Reason is the same in that I know I will forget. As I play Shadowdark more, these things will be second nature, so I may use them then. Generally, I'm playing an intuition-led game, and if I break the rules for the sake of the narrative, I will say so. What I mean by an intuitive game is that I'll be using my own imagination to generate the finer details of the dungeon as my characters enter. If you've seen my previous video, you'll know I've got a skeleton dungeon with magic items, treasure, and boss monsters. The point of this solo game is to challenge myself to create a story simply by playing a game. Now before we begin, I want to set the scene a bit by talking about my characters and what has brought them on this path of discovery or opportunity for adventure. Let's start with my favourite, Sneech the Initiate Goblin Priest. So Sneech is a bit of a wild card. He wants to retrieve an artifact which he believes will stop the Bloodrite, a cruel and brutal prophecy that predicts the end of days, where only the strongest survive. While Sneech is a young priest, he is devout and wholeheartedly believes this prophecy will come true. His courage is on par with that of priests who are much older and wiser than him, which is a compliment but also a cautionary observation. Next we have Thorin Gendry, our dwarf apprentice wizard. He worships Madeira, the first manifestation of the law and I suppose order. He blindly follows what he is told, and his mentor set him on a quest to retrieve a potent ingredient for a spell. This task is also part of an assessment. Should he fail, he will be held back a year, which for him is mortifying. He prides himself on his intelligence and will do anything to succeed. It's not about power for him, but the mastery and accolades that come with being the higher level spellcaster he aspires to be. Finally, we have Elias the Exiled, our elf thief, who is banished. Now, our Elias was part of a group trying to make a youth potion to stall aging. Of course, this was driven by vanity. Unfortunately for them though, the process didn't go to plan, and there were consequences for tinkering with the natural order. This is why our elf was exiled, and they have been trying to make up for what they did ever since. As penance, they must too retrieve an artifact from the ruins. They don't know what the artifact does, but they do know it is imbued with a potent magical energy. It is unclear if our elf has learned their lesson, but they are desperate to get back into their town leader's good books, so they can go home. So let's set the scene. Our adventure begins at the entrance of the Tol ruins. Our band of adventurers hope to make an expedition into the ruins to reclaim whatever treasure is in there. They met while trekking through a dense Tol forest. Despite being sent by different individuals, they've decided to team up. Safety in numbers, right? Now this isn't surprising, considering the Tol forest is full of venomous animals and many adventurers die before even reaching the ruins. So perhaps our explorers are aware that working together rather than against each other is the most sensible option. Now the riches of the Tol ruins are widely spoken about. However, each party member is keeping a secret. They are all after that special artifact, but none of them know what it is or what it does. All they know is that it will reveal itself to them when the time is right. Of course, the GM, which is me, does know what this artifact is, but the players don't, so I need to keep this in mind when they are exploring. So the first bit of lore about the Tol ruins is that they are around 500 years old. The ruins can only be accessed every 50 or so years when the water level drops, as the lake drains into one of the many underground cave networks. Nobody knows why this happens, but everyone has a theory or two. Now, this part of the world has fortunately benefited from a very long period of stability in terms of conflict and climate. It's ruled over by one royal family whose relatives take care of individual districts and towns. Lower-ranking nobles are sometimes referred to as town leaders. But before we enter the ruin, we need to establish the calling order. Sneech has a 9, Thorin has a 6, and Elias has a 4. It's approaching around 10 PM at night. The sky is a dusky twilight, as it is the height of summer. The sound of birdsong has been replaced with the hum of 1,000 nocturnal insects. And the faint cries of a young woman who seems to be inside the ruins. Our adventurers have each lit a torch to begin the descent into the Talyul ruins, knowing they may never come out. Wait, can you hear that? It sounds like muffled crying. I think a young woman is inside. We must help her. Sneech immediately runs into the ruins to give this young lady help. His passive wisdom is high enough to hear this, so I didn't roll on his behalf. Sneech, don't go, she could be... Before Thorin has time to finish, Sneech has already entered the ruins. Elias and Thorin look at each other with apprehension. They're a lot more cautious than Sneech, and are worried this could be a trap. Nevertheless, they begrudgingly follow behind him. Their hands hover above their weapons. Upon entering the ruins, our characters are greeted with a pungent smell, very similar to mould. It's obvious these ruins are often waterlogged, and as the water levels have receded, a slimy moss has begun to coat the walls. As the torches flicker in the darkness, everything appears to have a green tint. Now, our NPC or lady is hiding behind a boulder, but she's pretty much wailing at this point, so I'm not going to bother rolling anything, and it's pretty obvious where she is. Sneech is the first in the cave and the first to approach her, but because she is in such a state, I want to roll and see if she will attack Sneech unprovoked as he engages with her. Let's ask the Oracle. In terms of the likelihood of outcomes, I'm going for even, as she may be distressed because she badly needs help, or because she's so deeply traumatised she will lash out at the first person she sees. So the question I'm going to ask is, will our wailing woman attack Sneech? Oh, that's an 11. Oh, I didn't want her to attack him, damn it. Excuse me, miss, are you... Before Sneech has a chance to finish his question, our wailing woman leaps up at him, clutching her lute. Yes, she is a bard, and tries to whack him with it. She has no other weapons on her. Side note, my niece rolled up this character and made this drawing for me. Now, I'm not going to roll for combat initiative because I'm treating this NPC like a trap that has been activated. Yes, I'm breaking the rules right away, so lucky I'm the GM. This is the only time I'm doing this though, as pre-initiative actions like this are a bit naughty. But for the sake of storytelling, I want this to happen. Oh my word, is that for real? I've just rolled a natural 20. Why have I done this? See, this is what happens when you break the rules. Okay, because she was so wound up, she attacks with such fervour that the neck of the lute snaps within her hands upon impact, with Sneech's head. She was terrified, so it makes sense she would lash out at someone who came close to her. So let's double the dice roll. Blimey, he's going to die before we even start. So I'm going to roll a d4 for the damage. Please don't be a 4. Okay, so a 2. Now, I will be honest in that I have doubled all of my characters' HP since last session, as I knew there was a risk of them dying right away, which doesn't make for a good story. So instead of 4 HP, Sneech actually has 8. But of course, he now has 4 due to the scuffle. Now, I really don't want my characters to stay in combat, so I'm going to ask the Oracle. After hitting Sneech, does our wailing woman try to run away? If she doesn't, I'll roll for a proper combat initiative. Again, 50-50 odds, as I don't know her state of mind. She could be wanting to get out, or be in a frenzied state and want to attack anyone and everything. Oh, thank goodness, I rolled a 15, so she runs away with her broken lute. Despite Thorin and Elias covering their weapons, they don't engage with our wailing bard. She runs past them, towards the light of the ruins entrance. She's screaming something as she passes them, but they can't make out what she is saying. Well, that didn't go to plan. My intention for this scene was to have a bit of roleplay and learn more about what is lurking in the ruins. So none of that happened, and my characters are completely unprepared, which I suppose is good for a cruel GM. Okay, so everyone is within the ruins entrance. Thorin and Elias run over to Sneech and inspect his wounds. He has a lovely split on his forehead. That is bleeding, but other than that, he looks okay. Sneech, you should have held back. Don't do that again. You could have got us all killed. As GM, I'm not going to roll for any random encounters, as our wailing woman was already very loud. So if something was already drawn to the cave by the noise, it would have likely been there already, instead of being attracted to the crash of the lute making contact with Sneech's head. Now, this room is very well lit, as all of our characters are carrying torches. To the left of them is the entrance to what appears to be another room. In front of them, there is a narrower arch with a very obvious draught coming from it. If we think back to our characters, none of them know what is in these ruins. They do not have a map, and I lost control of the wailing woman who didn't pass on any information. Okay, so what do? I'm going to ask the Oracle. Do they go straight ahead towards the draft? I'm going to roll 3 times and take an average, as I want them all to have a say. Again, even odds, as there wouldn't be any reason for them to have a preference. Oh my word, those are some exciting rolls. Okay, so that's an average of 9.6. Now I haven't looked up the rules for rounding in Shadowdark, but I'm going to round up. So they've got an average of 10. Okay, this is good, there is a twist. So I need to use a prompt table to roll an outcome. So we have break 56 and compare 65. Now that is interesting and could be very inflammatory. Okay, how mean do I want to be with this? Actually, this is probably a misuse of the Oracle, but I'm going to ask it a very metagaming question. Oracle, should I be mean? Again, even odds, as I want it to be fair. Oh, that's a 4. I can't be mean. Okay, so my initial thought was, as they were hotly debating the route to take, given those extreme rolls, part of the ceiling cracked or broke, and a gush of water fell from it, extinguishing one of the torches. But I can't do that now, so we'll park that idea. Let's take a quick look at the timer. Okay, 10 minutes have gone already, and we're still in the first room. Right, I'm going to roll a d4. Even number is left, odd is straight ahead. Okay, so I got a 3, which is odd. So what I have in mind will affect the arch, which is straight ahead. So as Elias and Thorin are hotly debating the costs and benefits of taking one route over the other, Thorin notices a cracked emblem or carving above the entrance of the arch. He didn't spot it right away upon entering the cave, as our wailing NPC was a bit of a distraction. Unfortunately though, it's written in a language that none of them understand, but it could be helpful to know if any of my characters can at least recognise or date it. I'm going to nominate Thorin to make an intelligence check on this to see if he can hazard a guess at the carving. I'm also going to make this a DC of 12, as Thorin is incredibly ambitious and may have done some extracurricular reading about the Talyul ruins. Oh wow, that's an 18 and plus 3, that's a 21. He absolutely smashes that roll. I'll drip feed a bit of extra information because of it. Let's see what he has to say. Ah yes, I recognise this language. It was often used in documents that spoke of a blood rite, but something is off. Some of the special characters are inversed or look upside down. What could that mean? Inverse scripture on the blood rite. Now, Sneech at this moment is looking very confused. He hasn't encountered this before in his studies. This could be explained by his initiate status, but nonetheless, he's a little discombobulated. So our characters decide to take the route down the stairs and venture deeper into the ruins. The descent into the unknown is really beginning to affect them. What was down there that induced utter terror in the bard? They are on edge and Sneech almost misses a step as he leads the group further towards the unknown. Okay, I better roll for some random encounters as I think enough time has passed. Now, random encounters need not be hostile. So how this is done is that I roll a d6. If I roll a 1, a random encounter appears. Okay, that's a 4. No random encounters so far. Let's check the time. 30 minutes have passed. As our players descend the steps, they hear the sound of water crashing against rocks. It sounds like it's cascading from quite some height. In front of them, coming into view, they see a mosaic mural, and it's a picture of abundance. There are luscious green rolling hills and valleys. Elias recognises a scene as an aerial view of his home. Well, it's not his home specifically, but he knows that the land is part of a royal estate and all folk can enjoy it. It's not sealed off or anything like that. However, there are rules. For example, only nobles are allowed to hunt the deer. Now, while Elias is engrossed in that mural mosaic, we'll turn our attention back to Sneech. He's feeling very curious on account of what Thorin spoke about on the blood rite. For this reason, he's going to search this area to see if he can learn more about the meaning of these ruins. So let's roll for investigation, which is intelligence. Are you joking me? That's a natural 1. Seriously, what is going on? I'll roll a nat 20 for the NPC attack. When I want my players to find something nice, it's a nat 1. Critical failure. Right, I want them to find this item, so we'll see if Thorin is up to the task. If they don't find it, that's cool though. It's not the be-all and end-all, but I would like to talk about it, for the sake of the story. So as Sneech searches for answers, he's just a bag of nerves. The weight of carrying the torch is getting to him, and he's not really focused. He likes the idea of finding an answer, but he's just a bit overwhelmed and wanders over to Elias, who is engrossed in looking at that mural. Thorin was the last to enter the room, and upon seeing Sneech have a cursory glance over their new surroundings, his memory is jogged as to why he's really there, the promise of treasure and a hidden artifact that is his salvation. Let's roll. Okay, that's much better. It's a 14. Actually, this is much, much better. Okay, this is good. So I'm going to describe the room in some more detail. It looks like some sort of spa. There is a cold plunge pool that appears to flow down to another level. It seems that whoever made this ruin used the natural feature of a waterfall to create this bath. The pool is surrounded by a wall that is about 3 feet high. There is a 5-foot gap where there are steps that go down into a pool. Placed in a recess in this wall, though, is a goblet that bizarrely contains emerald chippings. Maybe these were used in the mosaic or on the pool floor. All of these items are worth about 25 gold pieces. But what does Thorin do? Does he keep this find to himself, or does he tell the others? Let's ask the oracle. Now, because he is lawful, I'm going to roll with advantage, as in my opinion, he would want to tell his colleagues about his find. Okay, so the first roll was a 14, so yes, he tells them, but can we get a 20 so that he's more steadfast? Ah, no, that's a 7. Goodness, those look like emeralds. But what's this? Sneech, Elias, I found something. As Thorin empties the emerald chips into his hand, he notices an inscription around the rim of the goblet. He recognises the characters as being the same as above the door, but their placement isn't the same. Nevertheless, it appears to be connected to the same people who built these ruins. Upon hearing Thorin, Elias and Sneech snap out of staring at the mural and wander over to him. Okay, I've had an idea of what I want this goblet to be, but I'm going to see if either Sneech or Elias can work out what it is. Now, Elias is going to help Sneech by maybe holding the goblet up to the torch, so Sneech can inspect it better. This means I'm going to roll with advantage. Okay, 14 and 5, they pass. So as Elias is holding the goblet up to the torch, Sneech can get a better idea of the size and shape of it, and notices it is very similar to the collection they have in the church. We have these at our church. Our healer fills them with water from our font. Wait a moment. And as Sneech says this, we can see him approach the pool, and he fills the goblet with the water and takes a drink. So let's roll a d4. Excellent, that's 4 points of healing he's got back. We're back to full health. As an FYI, my hour time has just run out. Luckily, Sneech and Elias are carrying spare torches and flint, so they will strike those up, but not yet. Okay, so just before all 3 torches burn out, Thorin splits the emerald chip evenly among the group, and they discuss where they are going. I think the only way through is to climb down the waterfall, but we'll lose a torch if we light one now. So, as Elias and Sneech are carrying spare torches, Sneech is prepared to light one, just to give them enough light to get their grappling hook and rope. Because Elias, our rogue elf, has the highest dex, I'm leaving it to them to manoeuvre and find a spot to embed the hook, so they can all safely climb down. I think I've spotted a split in the rock. If I can make it over there, I can secure the hook and drop the rope down. It will be strong enough to take our weight. Also, because this dungeon is unsafe and not deadly, the water Elias has to wade through isn't treacherous. It's a spa, not a fast-flowing river. He's also a rogue and will be familiar with climbing and scaling different structures. For this reason, I'm rolling this with advantage as per his character sheet. Okay, so we have a 15 and 12, as the rocks are coated in algae. But a 15 passes, so Elias deftly feeds the rope through a loop in the grappling hook, tying it off. He then wedges his foot between the rocks, so that as he throws the hook, he doesn't slip. Fortunately, the hook catches where it was supposed to, and it's fully secure as it bites into the rock. He leans back on the rope with a bit of force to see if it holds. And it does. Are you ready? He calls back to Sneech and Thorin. They both look at each other with wide eyes, as neither of them really knows how deep this waterfall goes. Let's see if Sneech can work it out. Nope, that's a 3. He has no idea. As both of them approach, Elias gestures to Sneech to go first, as he is the least athletic. He takes the torch as Sneech grabs the rope. So does Sneech manage to climb down the waterfall? Another bad roll, that's a no. Okay, as Sneech is climbing, he gets his foot stuck, and as he leans down to free it, he accidentally lets go of the rope and crashes into the water below. I will roll a constitution check. If he gets high enough, he takes half the damage. I'm making a DC 17, as this waterfall is about 20 feet tall. Nope, 13, so I'm going to roll a D6, not a D4, as I'm feeling mean. Now that is 6 points of damage. Luckily he healed. Why do I always roll so badly for Sneech? He has 2 hit points left. Upon seeing Sneech crash into the darkness below, Elias instinctively grabs a rope, swings across and begins to slide down. But does he stay on it? Okay, it looks like he gets advantage on this. So first roll is 7, and that fails. Next roll is 10, plus 3, that passes with a total of 13. As Elias reaches the bottom of the pool, he dives down to retrieve Sneech, who is flailing about in the water. Both are in total darkness at this point. Also, I've just realised this. Sneech and Elias are carrying the torches, which are now soaking wet. Do they need to dry out? Let's ask the oracle. I suppose if they're coated in oily wax, they could be hydrophobic. Will these torches light after getting wet? 14, that's a yes, thank goodness. Last but not least is Thorin. As he pulls on the rope, he discards the torch so he can climb down with both hands. Let's see if he is successful. Yes, a 12 plus 2 is 14. As Thorin reaches dry ground, he fumbles around attempting to light another torch. But because the GM has realised he isn't the one carrying the spare torches, his efforts are futile, so instead he will cast light on his emerald chips in his pocket. Okay, to successfully cast this spell we need an 11, which is 10 plus 1 because he's using tier 1 spells. So I rolled a 10 and a plus 3, which is 13, so that's a pass. If he failed that, it wouldn't have been ideal. These emerald chips will glow an iridescent green for about an hour. Hey Sneech, Elias, come towards the glowing emerald chips. And with that, both of them wade through the water towards Thorin. Don't forget, we are in total darkness at the moment. We need light fast. Hold this, Sneech. And with that, Elias shakes off the torch and relights it. He expects to see perhaps a look of relief from Sneech and Thorin, who are standing in front of him, but instead they are slack-jawed and wide-eyed. It's not until he turns around he sees what's making their way towards them. Also, I totally forgot to get Sneech to heal himself, which could be catastrophic for him. Let's roll for combat. They have been detected by the Cyclops. Elias is up first. What will he do? So Cyclops at this point is about 20 feet away. So Elias spins around, drops the torch, it's still alight, and he pulls out his short bow to take aim at a Cyclops. I might also add here, I had to tone down the stats of the Cyclops, so it's more baby Cyclops than Cyclops. Okay, let's see if he hits. Oh my, that's a natural 20, a critical hit, great start. Okay, let's see how much piercing damage these arrows do. So I rolled a 2, but we're going to double that, so 4 points of damage, not bad. So Cyclops doubles down in pain as an arrow makes its way to its abdomen. Blood starts to stain the water red. Next up is Thorin, our spellcaster. He's going to be brave and move 20 feet, so he's within touching distance of the Cyclops. As he stands there, flames begin to form in his hands and fire licks up his wrists, finally reaching his elbows. He tries to grab the Cyclops' leg and hopefully burn for it. Oh no, that's a nat 1 and 6, because I'm rolling with advantage. And thank goodness, as he would have needed to undergo penance of a critical foul. Oh wow, that was close. Still not high enough to activate the spell though. Side note here, I'm not sure if I've interpreted the spell right. I think close means touch, but when I read the spell it sounds like the fire spreads further away than touch. Anyway, for all intents and purposes, burning hands in this video is a touch spell. As Thorin attempts to clasp his hands around the calf of the Cyclops, he leans in too much and stumbles into the water. Oh, this is good. It's our Cyclops' turn, and he's going to turn his attention to Thorin. He's going to attack him with his great club. No way, that's a 2 on the die. He misses, thank goodness. As the Cyclops swoops down and attempts to bludgeon Thorin, he misjudges where he is and ends up swinging the club through thin air. Okay, now we have Sneech. Little Sneech can see his friend Thorin thrashing around by the Cyclops' feet and wants to rush in and help. So he's going to move 20 feet and attack the Cyclops with his mace. 10 plus 2 is 12, which is a hit. Just. Sneech races up to the Cyclops and raises his mace to whack the Cyclops in the foot in an attempt to bring it down. Let's roll for damage. Excellent, that's a 6, maximum damage. The Cyclops roars out in pain as Sneech embeds his mace into its foot. He's getting really angry now. So top of the round we have Elias, and he's going to use his short bow again. This time he's going to aim for the eye. Excellent, 16, that's a hit. Let's roll for damage. Oh, 1 point of damage, but not bad. It's better than nothing. Next we have Thorin, our flammable wizard. He's again going to set his hands on fire and cast Burning Hands. We are rolling with advantage. Oh, that's a critical success. Hopefully we roll high. No way, that's so lucky. I've just rolled a 6. So doubled is 12 points of damage. So Thorin's hand again combusts into flames, but this time the flames are blue and not red. As he grasps onto the Cyclops' calf, he burns right through to the bone. The smell of cooked flesh begins to fill the room. The Cyclops screams out in agony and is struggling to stay upright. Oh, now it's the Cyclops' turn, and he's going for Thorin. He's going to bludgeon him with his great club. Ouch, 16, that definitely hits. Okay, Thorin could actually die here. Let's roll the damage. Okay, that's a 2 on the d4 plus 3, so he loses 5 hit points. He survives just. So the Cyclops with all his might brings down the club onto Thorin's head. He splits the crown and pools of blood come gushing out. He's in bad shape, but he's still standing. The last of the round is Sneech, so he just witnesses his friend take an almighty blow to the head and is going to use his mace again, but this time on the other foot. Nope, I rolled a 4 and plus 1, that's a miss. So as Sneech raises the mace, he catches sight of the open wound on Thorin's head and stumbles as he tries to land the blow. Back to the top of the round. This time it's Elias' turn. He's going to stick with what he knows. Having seen Thorin take an alarming whack to the head, he isn't getting close. So he readies his bow and takes aim again at the Cyclops' eye. So I rolled a 3 plus 4, that's only a 7, so he misses. No way. As he takes fire, the arrow whooshes above the Cyclops' head. Now we have Thorin, who has dealt a ton of damage so far, so let's see if he can do it again. He knows the Cyclops is on its last legs, so with all his might he's going to ignite his hands and go in again on that wound. First roll fails. Next is a successful pass with 12 plus 3, so 15. Remember, we only need 11 for spell activation. Let's roll damage. Oh, 4 points, that's it. The Cyclops is going down. Cyclops is in agony and swaying as Thorin buries his flaming hands into the open wound. But this time it's too much, and he falls face first into the water. We're out of initiative. As soon as the Cyclops hits the water, Elias picks up the torch. Sneech also luckily dived out of the way as the Cyclops took a tumble. Does anyone need healing? Thorin, you seem to be in bad shape. However, noticing that Sneech's wound from falling down the waterfall has reopened, Thorin suggests Sneech heals himself, which he does with Cure Wounds. That's a 5, so Sneech now has 7 hit points left. Okay, so my adventurers have defeated the Cyclops, which I honestly didn't think they would. I've also burnt through another hour timer, so we have 1 torch left, I think. Let's light it and see if they can make it to the end of the ruins. So after healing, our little band of adventurers will check the Cyclops' body for treasure. But as they approach the Cyclops, it just disintegrates into the ground and vanishes. Very strange. Thorin is the first to make an observation. Now I want Thorin to piece together some of what he has seen and make a judgment on it. So let's ask the Oracle. Has Thorin realised something odd is happening in these ruins? So I'm rolling with advantage, as with his background in magic, he's more than likely to come to some sort of conclusion. Right, so the first roll is a 2, and the next is 14. So he does think something is up. This isn't right. Only powerful magic can do something like that. I'm starting to think there's more to these ruins than what we were told about. When they hear this, Sneech and Elias agree that what they just saw is truly out of the ordinary and should try to find a way out of the ruins as quickly as possible. Besides the waterfall is some loose rubble. There could be a room behind it, but given what's just happened, I say my characters aren't in an exploring mood and want to make a move, so onwards they go. Also, I'm very conscious that I'm on my last torch and I want to get them to the final room. Thorin, Elias and Sneech dash past the space the Cyclops once occupied. Their clothes are soaked through as they run through the shallow pool. They approach a long corridor, but they are not being stealthy here and need to stop to light their last torch. They're frightened and want to get out as quickly as possible. Even Sneech is beginning to question why he was sent here. So as they reach the final room, the torch begins to illuminate it. Elias, who is leading the party, holds his breath, digs in his heels and stiffens to a halt. Thorin and Sneech abruptly do the same. No. Our little band of adventurers are back into initiative and are about to take on a baby minotaur. Thorin is up first, so upon seeing the minotaur, Thorin charges up to it, and again he's going to try and burn through it with his flammable hands. First is a fail. Second, I've rolled an 11 plus 3, which is 14. We only need 11 to activate his spell. As the minotaur rears up against Thorin, he places his hands on its chest. Red flames ignite and catch onto the minotaur. What's the damage? 4 points, not bad. Elias is up next, and again drops the torch to the floor, and is fumbling to get his short bow free. He can't believe this is happening again. I rolled a 10 plus 4, exactly what I need, so Elias deftly pulls back his bow and releases the arrow into the minotaur's chest, and delivers 3 points of damage. We're doing okay. Our minotaur has been burnt and shot at, beginning to descend into a frenzied state. It's going to attack Thorin and try to impale him with their horns. I'm not giving the minotaur 2 attacks and treating the horns like 1 pair. A roll of 14 definitely hits. How much damage do they do? Oh, that's 3 points of damage. Thorin is down to 2 hit points as the minotaur bows down and drives his horn through his side. Thorin is not looking good. Sneech has just seen his friend Thorin take a near-fatal wound, so he'll move towards him and cast Cure Wounds. What a nice guy. Oh, I got a natural 20. That's double healing. Excellent. So let's roll a d6, and I got a 5, so Thorin gets 10 HP back. He's back to full health. So when Sneech approaches Thorin, he places his hand over the wound the horn has made. After touching it, the skin knots back together and the bleeding almost stops. Thorin has a new lease of life and wants to exact his revenge on the minotaur. Because the minotaur is still bent over, he's going to grab his face. Let's see if he makes it. Oh my, natural 20. With both hands he cups the minotaur's face, almost affectionately, but his hands begin to come alight, and he makes 4 points of damage. Elias is up next, and he's going for his tried and trusted bow. He's an elf after all. So he's going to try and get the minotaur in the head, given that it's on fire and lighting up the room. Oh, that's a 12. He just misses. The arrow whistles past the minotaur and embeds itself into the wall behind them. The minotaur wants to take revenge out on Sneech for curing the wizard who had just burnt his face. In the minotaur's hand is a great axe, and they're going to take aim at Sneech. That's a 13 to hit, which it does. Oh no, Sneech, don't die. Okay, let's roll for damage. So that's 2 points of damage, so he has 5 hit points left. In retaliation, Sneech swings their mace and tries to bury it into the Minotaur's chest. That's an 11 to hit, which is unfortunately a miss. Sneech was just too small. It was an ambitious swing, but sadly not good enough. Seeing this, Thorin is going for Burning Hands again. First roll is a miss, so a 10 plus 3, which is 13, which is great. This time though, he's going to try and burn the Minotaur's leg by grabbing its calf. We rolled a 1 on the d6. I mean, it would have been great had it been more, but it's better than nothing. Elias sees all this from a distance and takes another quick fire shot at the Minotaur's head. 17 is a hit. A sudden breeze catches the Minotaur's attention and their head snaps towards Elias. But as they turn, the arrow grazes their cheek for 1 point of damage. In response to Elias firing the arrow, the Minotaur is going to charge towards him. They're going to try and dig their horns into him. No way, that's a natural 1. Okay, what happens here is that as the Minotaur charges, they underestimate the burn on their calf from Thorin. So they trip and fall onto the floor. They have disadvantage on attack rolls until they get up. Actually, I'm going to make a DC wisdom check of 15 here. 11, nothing happens. So Sneech is not usually one to kick someone when they are down, but for the Minotaur, they are willing to make an exception. So he's going to take a swing at the Minotaur's head with his mace. Oh no, that's a 5. Just as Sneech is about to make contact with the Minotaur's head, it rolls over. Top of the round. So Thorin sees an opportunity to really do some damage now the Minotaur is on the floor, writhing in pain, clearly in agony. So again with advantage, Thorin's hands set ablaze as he plunges them into the side of the Minotaur's abdomen. So that's a 16 and 11, both are fine. So as he pushes down with all his might, he does 1 point of damage. The fire fizzles out early. Elias, seeing the Minotaur on the floor, is going to mix it up and move 20 feet towards it, leaving the torch by the entrance of the corridor. He brings his dagger up with both hands and plunges it into the Minotaur's head. And with an 18, he does this with elegance. Oh, that's 2 points of damage. The Minotaur roars with pain. After taking a beating, the Minotaur gets up and rears their legs up in fury at Elias. That's all they can do for now. Last but not least is Sneech. He's going to try and swing his mace into the abdomen of the Minotaur. With the 3 to hit, he sadly misses. Thorin now taps in, igniting his hands. They catch fire with a 16 on the die. The first roll failed, but how badly does he burn the Minotaur? Yes, 6 points of damage, thank goodness. The Minotaur screams as its flesh sizzles. It's not looking good. Seeing the Minotaur weak, Elias goes in again with his dagger. He misses. The Minotaur is frantic now and wants to focus his attention to Thorin. Holding onto his great axe, he swoops down, trying to cut Thorin in half. No way, a natural 1. He swings, but with too much force, the axe flies out of his hand, embedding itself into the wall behind him. Seeing an opportunity, Sneech again goes in with his mace, trying to take out the Minotaur's legs. Also a natural 1. Okay, Sneech is going to lose a weapon. It's only fair. He takes a swing, but like the Minotaur, he lets go of his weapon and it clatters against the floor. Thorin and Elias turn to him in disbelief. Surely one of them is going to defeat this Minotaur. They are all so close. Thorin is getting really mad now. He once again ignites his hands. First roll is 15 and then the next is 17. Perfect. He is still holding on to the Minotaur and his hands come alight. That's 4 points of damage and the Minotaur is down. Suddenly there is silence. And just like the Cyclops before, the Minotaur disintegrates into ash, vanishing before them. Elias retrieves the torch from the corridor and returns to the group. So, where do we go from here? Thorin replies, I don't like it here. Something really isn't right. Sneech then adds, me neither. These creatures aren't natural. They've completely disappeared, but we need to press on. I really must retrieve what I was sent here to get. So many people are dependent on me. This piques the interest of Elias and Thorin, and they ask Sneech what he is looking for. So I'm going to ask the Oracle, do the others share what they are looking for? 2, that's a no. Interesting. So up until now, it's only Sneech that has played his hand. I'm going to ask another question. After all they have been through, are Thorin and Elias more concerned about making it out alive than retrieving what they were sent to get? No, that's a nat 1. They still want to retrieve what they were sent to get. Very steadfastly, in fact. Okay, I've got to play this out. The torch is beginning to burn out, and Sneech, Elias and Thorin make their way down the final passageway into the last room. This passageway seems a lot more grand in comparison to the rest of the ruins. There is no algae on the walls, and it looks untouched. Like the spa, there are what I suppose murals on the wall. Again, all depicting abundance and happiness in various forms. The subjects are smiling and cheerful. However, there is something strange about it. Instead of a sun in the sky, there is a singular floating green eye, much like what the Cyclops had. Neither Sneech, Elias and Thorin noticed this as they walked past. At the end of this passageway, they are met with another arch. As they all walk through it, Thorin notices it shares the same inscription above the arch that led down to the stairwell. He still can't read it though. Sneech is the first to enter the final room, and when he does, he is drenched in light. There is no need for a torch anymore. Elias and Thorin are also mesmerised. Finally, maybe they're about to get what they came for. Elias dreams of returning home and being welcomed back into the fold, having paid his dues for that little mishap with the bootleg anti-aging potion. Meanwhile, Thorin can picture himself achieving everything he worked towards and making his mentor proud. Sneech just feels relief as he imagines a world where a blood right can never happen. And as they manifest this, gold letters appear on the walls just beneath the ceiling. But they can now understand it. It reads, "Only those most humble are worthy of Ramlat's mercy." As the letters appear, a golden emerald eye begins to develop in the corner of the room. I'm going to ask the Oracle, do Thorin and Elias run towards the eye and intend to take it for themselves? Wow, that's a 19, so a yes, a definite yes. As the eye manifests, Thorin mutters to himself, "I'm just a lowly apprentice wizard, of course I'm humble," and he runs towards it, knocking Sneech to the floor. At the same time, Elias thinks to himself, "I was told the artifact would reveal itself to me when the time was right. I get to go home." And upon seeing Thorin run towards the jeweled eye, he leaps over poor little Sneech and moves quickly towards it. Both reach for the eye at the same time, and as soon as their fingertips graze the surface, they turn to dust. Just like the Cyclops and Minotaur before them, they are gone. Sneech, upon seeing this, doesn't understand what's happened, but he knows that this jeweled eye has something to do with the blood rite. His hand shakes as it moves near to the eye. As he gets closer, he holds his breath and picks up the eye of Ramlat, and it shows him something. Sneech is no longer in the ruins, but the Tull Forest. It's 500 years ago. A prince summons a cycloptic demon working on behalf of Ramlat. He is jealous of his brother, the king, and decides to make a pact. In exchange for free souls or tributes, every 50 years, he and his future bloodline would benefit from power, abundance, and peace. But nothing ever comes easy. If any of the souls prove themselves worthy of Ramlat by showing both strength of body and mind, then the deal breaks, and the entire royal bloodline dies at the same time. As this vision ends, Sneech finds himself back in the ruins. The eye of Ramlat crumbles in Sneech's hands. All that is left of it is a mound of ash. Contrary to what Sneech believed, the blood rite already happened, except not in the way the prophecy described. There was no cataclysmic event, just a subtle, hostile takeover and transfer of power from one brother to another. Sneech proved himself of both body and mind and was triumphant. He never wanted the power for himself. He was truly humble. Had the oracle results turned out differently for Elias and Thorin, they would have nominated Sneech to retrieve the jeweled eye. That was one way for them to overcome their flaws and survive, as they were kind of motivated by selfish reasons. Also, the point about the humble being worthy of Ramlat came from the inverse scripture, which was actually based off a prompt. So the original prophecy was only the strongest would survive. So I flipped it for a loosely related opposite word, and I settled for humble. There was also a bit of foreshadowing, where I said many people die in the forest before reaching the ruin. Because my 3 players were sent as tributes, they essentially got a free pass, as Ramlat wanted them to reach the ruins for the trial. My initial plan for the NPC was that she was trying to escape from the monsters within the ruins. But I think it's more fitting that, because she wasn't a tribute, as soon as she entered the ruins, she was driven insane, kind of like a deterrent to keep those out who are not tributes. The idea of the Hunger Games style of contest came to me while reading the book, so that idea was already half baked in when I was thinking of what I wanted the theme of this dungeon to be. The lore was kind of generated as I went along, especially with the broken prompt and the idea it gave me to inverse the meaning of the blood rite. That really sealed the fate of this story for me, and the whole downfall of the Empire, who wanted power so much they were prepared to sacrifice their own subjects to protect it. I always try to bake in character flaws in the beginning, just to see how they pan out. I really wanted Thorin and Elias to overcome their flaws, but unfortunately, the Oracle wanted something different. You can check out my videos on how I developed their character backstories, which I'll link to in the description below. Anyway, that's all for today, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.